welcome to this explainer. If you've ever stared at a financial spreadsheet or valuation report and just felt your eyes completely glaze over at the alphabet soup of acronyms, you are absolutely in the right place. Today, we're going to demystify one of the most common, yet honestly most misunderstood financial metrics out there, EV to EBITDA. And I promise you, we are not going to get bogged down in dry textbook definitions here. We're going to use simple, relatable analogies to make this complex financial jargon actually click intuitively in your brain. Because if you're feeling a little overwhelmed by it, trust me, you are totally not alone. We were looking at a recent CFA study group, and this quote from a level 1 aspirant named Amin just hit the nail on the head. He basically said, EV/EBITDA is next, and I'm still confused, complete with a little nervous sweat emoji. It's incredibly common to feel stuck right here, especially when you're gearing up for rigorous exams or trying to analyze a stock for the very first time. So let's just dive right into this and make the math feel natural, starting with the very first part of that equation.
All right, Section 1, Unpacking Enterprise Value, or EV for short.
To wrap your head around this, I want you to imagine you aren't just buying a single share of stock. Imagine you are buying an entire business outright. It's exactly like buying a house. Here's the formula. Market cap plus debt minus cash. Let's apply our house analogy because it makes this so much easier. The market cap is simply the asking price of the house, what the market says the equity is currently worth. But wait, what if the house comes with a mortgage that you have to take over? Well, that's the debt. You absolutely have to add that to your true cost of taking ownership. But imagine you walk in your new house, head into the kitchen, and find a giant jar full of cash left on the counter by the previous owner. You get to keep that. So you naturally subtract that cash from your total purchase price. That final number, the asking price plus the mortgage you take on minus the cash you find inside, that is your true enterprise value. It's the absolute bottom line price tag of acquiring the entire firm. Moving right along to Section 2, EBITDA, the absolute core engine of the business. So if enterprise value is the price tag of the car, think of EBITDA as the absolute core power source. It stands for earnings before interest, taxes, depreciation, and amortization. It's quite a mouthful, right? But why do we strip all these things out? Let's go back to our car engine analogy. We want to measure the pure, raw horsepower of this specific engine. We don't really care how you finance the car. That's the interest. We don't care about the specific road tolls you have to pay depending on what state you're driving in. That's the taxes. And we aren't looking at the gradual wear and tear on the paint job over time. That's depreciation and amortization. By taking all of those elements entirely out of the equation, we can look purely at the engine's raw power. The crucial takeaway here is that stripping away these accounting and financing impacts leaves us with the pure operating performance of the company. As Tan Mei, the study group leader from our sources, puts it so perfectly, EV to EBITDA tells you how much you're paying for the company's core operating earnings, irrespective of how it's financed. It basically gives you a super clean look at what the business actually does on a day-to-day basis. Now, a really common beginner question almost always pops up here. Wait, so is EV to EBITDA actually better than the classic PE ratio? And the answer is no. It's really not a competition. They aren't fighting each other. They're just offering two completely different perspectives on the exact same pie. PE, or price to earnings, comes from the equity perspective. It's looking at just one single slice of the pie, the shareholders. EV to EBITDA, on the other hand, takes an entire firm perspective. It looks at the whole pie, combining both the equity holders and the debt holders. Because EV to EBITDA intentionally strips out financing and taxes, it becomes an incredibly powerful tool for a few specific situations. You use this metric when you really need to level the playing field. For instance, it absolutely shines when you're comparing companies with vastly different debt levels, purely because it ignores those interest payments. It's also fantastic for comparing companies across entirely different industries or even different geographies where corporate tax rates might completely skew a traditional net income metric. It basically lets you compare apples to apples on a global scale. Okay, Section 3, Interactive Checkpoint. Let's look at some real CFA-style practice questions to see how this builds. Get your mental calculators ready. I'm going to read this question, give you a brief second, and I want you to try and solve it in your head. Practice question 1. A company has a market cap of $500 million, debt of $200 million, cash of $50 million, and an EBITDA of $100 million. What is the EV to EBITDA ratio? Take a second. Remember our house analogy? Market cap plus the debt mortgage minus the cash in the jar. Did you get 6.5? Let's walk through the math real quick, just like Aman did in his study session. First up, calculate the enterprise value. $500 million plus $200 million in debt gets you to $700. Subtract that $50 million in cash, and you have an enterprise value of $650 million. Divide that $650 by the $100 million in EBITDA, and boom, you've got a multiple of 6.5. All right, let's step it up to practice question 2. This is a highly common conceptual exam question. Two companies have identical EBITDA. They have the exact same engine, but company A has higher debt. What happens to company A's EV to EBITDA ratio? Does it go down, up, or stay the exact same? Think about where debt sits in our formula. And this brilliantly illustrates why company A will actually have a higher ratio. If EBITDA is exactly the same for both, but company A has higher debt, that higher debt increases the total enterprise value on the top of the fraction. A bigger top number divided by the exact same bottom number logically drives the whole ratio up. This proves exactly why EV to EBITDA is so incredibly good at capturing those differences in capital structure. Now, let's talk interpretation. If you see a company with a lower EV to EBITDA multiple than its peers, what does that actually mean? Beginners almost always jump to say, oh, it's cheap, it's a steal, it's undervalued. But be careful here. While it could mean the stock is undervalued, it could also mean the broader market expects much lower future growth, or worse, that the company carries significantly higher risk. A low multiple is definitely not an automatic buy signal. It's really an invitation to dig deeper and ask why the market is pricing it so low. Which brings us right to section 4, avoiding valuation traps. Because honestly, even professional analysts sometimes get burned by this if they forget the single biggest limitation of relying solely on this metric. In our CFA study group sources, they hit upon a massive exam trap. What is the main limitation of EV to EBITDA? The answer is that it completely ignores capital expenditure, or CAPEX. Remember how we said EBITDA is the raw engine power? Well, CAPEX is the real money you have to spend constantly replacing the tires, fixing the transmission, and buying new tools just to keep that business running. Picture this scenario. A company might have a beautifully high EBITDA. It looks incredibly attractive on paper, but if they're in an industry that requires heavy, constant investment in physical equipment, think of a factory or a major airline, that hidden cost of high CapEx is secretly draining them. As a result, their actual reality is very low real cash flow. Relying strictly on EV to EBITDA completely blinds you to those heavy capital expenditures. It's a huge blind spot. Let's pivot a bit for section 5, the AI valuation shortcut. Because doing these calculations manually across dozens of companies is exhausting, as one of the students, Karan, rightly pointed out. But today, we have a bit of a magic wand. Using tools like Microsoft Copilot can completely streamline your valuation workflow. You can literally just prompt it, hey, find companies in this sector with an EV to EBITDA below the industry average, but with high growth. Instantly, the AI pulls the financial data, calculates the enterprise value, compares the companies side by side, and highlights any glaring anomalies. It essentially replaces hours of grueling spreadsheet labor, freeing you up to actually interpret the data rather than just crunching the raw numbers. It is absolutely a game changer. All right, we are in the final stretch, section 6, Pro Tips for Success. Let's quickly review how to master these concepts. Whether you're actively studying for your CFA or just analyzing your own portfolio, study group leader Tan Mei left us with some fantastic rapid-fire pro tips. First, master the logic. Don't just blindly memorize the formula. Actually remember the house and the car engine analogies. Second, always expect comparisons. Understand exactly when to use PE versus EV to EBITDA. Third, interpretation matters way more than calculation. Knowing why a multiple is high or low is where true financial literacy lies. Fourth, practice mixed concept and math questions. Fifth, never, ever forget that massive blind spot, the CAPEX limitation. And finally, revise your formulas repeatedly to build up your speed and accuracy. I want to leave you with this really profound thought from Tan Mei to close out our explainer. Numbers don't just test math, they test your thinking. EV to EBITDA isn't just a math problem to solve. It's a powerful lens through which you can view the true operational reality of a business. It forces you to think critically about debt, about cash reserves, and about raw performance. So the next time you see that multiple pop up on a screen, you'll know exactly what story it's trying to tell you. But let me ask you this. If you spot a company with an incredibly cheap EV to EBITDA multiple tomorrow, are you looking at a hidden market gem or a rusty engine hiding a massive, expensive repair bill? Keep analyzing, keep asking why, and we'll see you in the next explainer.